So today we are doing a piston replacement and reassemble of the Grom motor itself from coast to coast. So we learned in episode 1 when we disassembled the motor that it wasn't really required to replace the piston in a jug. Didn't do any damage to it really, but we're gonna go ahead and do it since we're giving this Grom away. Today we're gonna be doing the Airbox mod. We're also gonna be replacing the jug and the piston. We got a new gasket, piston rings, some assembly lube, and the Honda GN4 red top oil. So last week we took apart the clutch and replaced the clutch fibers. We also did the springs, the pressure plate. We also added the straight up pump and the straight up inner clutch basket hoodookie thing there. Episode 1, we disassembled the motor, so we took apart the head, the jug, the piston's still there. So today we're gonna be removing the piston, putting a new piston on, put the rings on there. Then we're gonna be reassembling everything, putting oil in it, throw exhaust on there, and make sure it fires up. So if you're watching this after the fact and you're trying to replace your piston and your jug, your cylinder, go to episode 1 and watch that. That will show you how to disassemble everything. Fast forward to this episode, we'll show you how to put everything back. If you wanna learn how to replace your clutch and do clutch things, that'll be episode 2. So all the links down below. All right, before we dive into the piston, I just want to go over what I have in front of me. So here is the stock airbox. We're going to do that first. We're going to disassemble this, do the Airbox mod. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. If not, you can fast forward to working on the actual motor itself. Highly recommend the Honda GN4. I buy it in the gallon. This or Mobile One, but I prefer this when possible. We're going to be assembling the piston into the jug and the ring, so we want to lube everything up. We have our brand new jug. So this is an OEM cylinder right here. On top of that, our very beefy 125 single piston here. We're going to be taking this guy, add in the piston rings, and then we have our replacement gasket here for the cylinder, so we got to scrape that off and put that guy on there. All right, right now we're going to be doing the Airbox mods. I'm going to assume you already have the Airbox off your bike. If you don't, go back to episode 1 and watch that. And it is a lot easier to do this off the bike, but if you're doing it on the bike, that's fine as well. Just remove your front cover. All right, and last screw here, and your Airbox cover comes off. What we're going to be doing today is adding a little bit of a ram air mod. So we're going to be drilling little holes into this little indentation right here. So when you give it gas, it's going to suck in air. It's going to be sucking in from the front and not just those snorkels. I can't find my smaller drill bits. The good news is I have multiple of these covers, so in an effort to speed this video up. Once I started this, I was originally going to use this because I'm lazy and I couldn't find the right bits. But as you guys can see, the holes are ridiculously too big compared to what I did previously on my stunt Grom. Luckily, I have the old Milwaukee, and we're going to go down to probably 1/8 maybe. We'll do a couple tests right now and see what looks right. All right, let's start with 1/8. Yeah, 1/8 looks great.
Pete Carvo donated $5 through Super Chat.
Scams! I got my drill bits, Pete, but I appreciate the Super Chat. Thank you so much. So luckily I have a backup front cover. So I'm just gonna do lines all the way down until we get to the bottom here. Maybe one right there. All right, that looks pretty good. So now that we got the cover drilled, no real method to this, just a whole bunch of little holes. 1/8 of an inch is the biggest I would go. If you want to go a little smaller, that's fine. If you want to put a little bit more holes, what happens is you get some water in there, you get some dirt in there. You just gotta keep an eye on your air filter. So inside the Airbox is this long snorkel right here. What we're gonna do is just cut this out and remove this whole snorkel. So it's just air. It's just gonna be an opening right here, and air goes straight into that. So you can actually just pull this guy out, just manhandle her. So it's just a little riveted thin metal thing, and then the snorkel itself. So once you remove this snorkel, you're left with this opening. As you can see, the opening kind of curves to the right. So what I did previously on my stunt bike was just cut this so it's more flush. These are like 100 pack of box cutters from Alibaba. A little bit nervous. All right, so that's it for the internal of the Airbox. Let me just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. Mostly flushed up. So now all we need to do is just remove this little cheese grater here. So 4 little rivets here. Pull this guy off for a little bit more airflow. Boom, boom. One thing I didn't mention is this little snorkel right here. Comes off the bike facing backwards, just spinning around. And if you have fairings, depending on what year you have, and have to cut, if you have the SF, there's little grooves, so the air will go straight into that. All right, the Airbox mod is now complete, so we're gonna put this back on the bike. If you have this on the bike already, just button it back up and you're done. So I'll put a timestamp right here. Go ahead and fast forward to that in the video if you wanna see how to reset your ECU. We're now gonna move on to the jug and piston, but before we get to that, we're gonna remove it from the bike itself. All right, so right here is your crank arm, your piston, and then your piston pin. Inside the piston pin on either side is a little bit of a C-clip that kind of just holds it in place, a retainer clip. So we've got to pop that out on one side, then the pin can slide out, the piston can come out. So you have an opening, so we just have to rotate this pin until we find that opening. All right, so I got one side out right here. Kind of went in there and popped it out. You're supposed to rotate this guy to that little opening, but we're just gonna fling this. I'm gonna close my eyes. There it goes, somewhere over there. So there it is right there. So you see the opening right there. Gotta rotate it around to the opening on your piston. You'll see a little notch for it right there. And then it becomes a little bit easier to get it in and out, but I just kind of popped it out. It just goes all over the place. So now I'm just gonna push it out from the other side, and then we'll be able to take the pin out and remove the piston. You don't need to remove both sides to get it out. You just gotta remove one of them. Okay, pin's out, piston comes out. Just have something to catch your crank arm. The retainer clip on this side is still in. Here's our brand new one. You guys can see the oil rings are right there. We're gonna be putting those onto this brand new one. We got brand new oil rings. All right, so we got a couple of letters here. This is for intake, so when we put it on to the crank arm, we'll know which position to put it on. You can kind of see it right there underneath the buildup. Right now we're going to be doing the oil rings, so we're going to get those set. Reference the service manual. We're going to follow this process here. You can see it has 120 degrees from each opening right here once we put it around the piston itself. So we're going to go 120 degrees to 120 degrees to 120 degrees all the way down. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. So we got little markings on this guy. So that little marking right there is an R. So it's based on your brand. So this is Riken. See right here, top ring markings, R for Riken, NT or T for Takuku, whatever that name is right there. So this is our top ring right here. We're gonna put it with the marking up. Our second ring will be RS, which is this one right here. Thick one. And then our third ring will be the 3 rings itself, which we're going to sandwich the side rails and then the spacer in between them. We're going to work our way down the notes here. Staggered the piston rings and gaps 120 degrees apart from each other as shown. Staggered the side rails gaps as shown. After installation, the piston rings should be free to rotate in the groove, the piston groove itself right here. So once we get it in, we should be able to spin it like this one right here. All right, some part numbers for you guys. So this is for the oil ring set. If you guys trying to pick it up, just Google that. Our cylinder gasket, part number. Our piston gasket, part number. Our jug, I don't have the part number handy. I'll put it right here. Boop. Part number for the jug. We're gonna work our way from the bottom to the top. So first thing I'm gonna do is gonna be very, very delicate on this one. Don't want to stress it too much, but it's gonna get it started and then spin it around. So that one's in there. Now we take our spacer, do the same thing. This one's gonna sandwich that spacer. As you guys can see, rotates. So we're good there. So now we're gonna move on to the second one. The second ring is the RS. So my opening on that one is right there. So I'm gonna go about right here, finesse this guy around the piston. And then we can always spin these openings around. This is pretty tedious, so just take your time. Follow the diagram, which I laid out for you guys as far as the 120 and which ring goes where. Got that guy in there, so here's my opening there, so I'm just gonna rotate that about 120 degrees. Final one will be our R or NT or T, depending on your brand, for your top ring. So that one's there, that one's there. I'm gonna just rotate this one a little bit to right here. Hey, that one is in there. So again, these should all spin freely, which they all do. So right here is the opening on the bottom side rail. Right there is the opening on the top side rail. So if you look at the diagram on the spec again, that's exactly where it has. So the opening of that goes to the opening of that. This top one, you can see it's not 120 degrees. So what I'm now gonna do is go from 120 degrees to 120 degrees to 120 degrees for the 3 rings, which is actually, we count this as 1 ring, the bottom rail, 2 and 3. And just showing you that on the service manual. So you have the opening there, and then we work, that counts as 120, 120, 120. We're just gonna work our way around with that. All right, now I'm gonna attempt to remove this gasket. We'll be putting on a new gasket, so I'm just gonna scrape off the residue of that guy. All right, just taking a flat razor blade. Now that this is cleaned up, we're gonna now put the piston and piston pin in the connecting rod. Per the live chat, we're gonna degrease it. Okay, degreased. All right, now that we got that done, got my two brand new piston clip pins, our new piston. I'm gonna reuse my piston pin. We're gonna put one pin on one side of the piston. We're going to put it on the connecting rod, and then we'll put the retainer pin or the piston clip on the other side. So this is gonna be a little bit of a process, so finesse her in there. You got that little opening where you can get it started in. I wanna use this guy, but that's gonna go right through my finger. Here we go. Ooh. One tiny flathead is all you need. All right, now that you simply, very easily get your pin ring in there, just rotate the opening so it's not on this groove. So you want to rotate it just so it sits back so it doesn't pop out on you. Lube her up a little bit. We're going over here. I'm gonna put the gloves back on. We're gonna lube. Retainer clip on one side. Gonna lube this guy, lube my little pin. Getting her nice and lubed up here. I'm also gonna lube the inside of the piston where it's gonna slide in. Throw a little lube in this guy too. Everybody gets lubed on. Arm's got some lube in it too. Shove my little pinky in there. Make sure she's all the way around. Extra lubey lube. All right, intake side up, lubed up. Got the pin halfway inserted. My clip is already on that side. And we're gonna slide her in now that she's well lubed. All right, so she is sticky, icky, lubey.
Zach Lee donated $5 through Super Chat. That's a lot of lube for just sliding a pinky in. Lol.
Lol. The pin is all the way in. Now I'm gonna put the clip on this side using the same method that I used on the workbench. We're gonna make sure she's well lubed as well. Everything gets well lubed, so, oh yeah. It's like a melted Jolly Rancher. Now that she is lubed, I am going to take my small flathead and pinch her in there. There's a 90% chance of this thing flying out, hit me in the eyeball, and shutting down this channel. Let's continue. Heard there's no such thing as too much lube, but I think we reached maximum lubrication here. Oh yeah, she's in there, baby. The lube helps, ladies and gentlemen. We are in, all the way in. Now I'm just gonna take my shaft of my screwdriver and rotate that pin so she doesn't pop out, because once again, she's well lubed. All right, we now have our piston pin and retainer clip things on the crank, and we're solid. So now all we gotta do is add our gasket and our jug. We gotta remove our dowel pins, put them on a new jug. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, before we continue, I'm gonna go ahead and slide on my new gasket. So it just goes green part forward, and then you have your little groove for the cutout for the cam chain. Okay.
Thomas McKelvey donated $1 through Super Chat. Lube fist repeat.
Oh, lube it all. Let's lube it. Let's go. Look at that. I went ham for that $10 super chat. She's lubed now, baby. Thank you for the super chat. I'm just gonna stick my finger in there and slide her around, get the lube throughout her inners, and then clean up any excess lube that might have leaked out. And we're gonna put our jug into our piston, pressing the piston rings, making sure they didn't move. All right, got a couple of dowel pins here, this one and this one. We're gonna move over to the jug. We also have one on this side, so just gonna back these guys out and take this guy off and transfer it to the new jug. So we'll do that right now. Hey, hold on, we got a special guest. Baby Grommer's here. Say what's up.
Baby, Big Daddy.
Big Daddy? Well, I'm just a normal sized daddy. I'm not big.
Andre D'Souza donated $5 through Super Chat. That's what she said.
Up, baby, down, baby. All right, see you later. I got my jug on there. Now I'm just gonna slide her in. I'm just gonna compress these rings with my hand as I slide this guy into the cylinder. Gonna use a flathead screwdriver just to compress. Okay, one. We're through one. We're working our way into the second one. Making sure that she is well lubed, because you don't want any scorching as you're putting these inside. Everything looks good so far. Just gonna
go ahead and get her all the way in. Just for safekeeping, we're just gonna add a little bit of lube inside. As you guys can tell, she is well lubed. Get a little bit of lube up here. Good call guys. A little lube up here around the outside of the piston so she slides into her home. There she goes, yeah. And then we're just gonna work our way back. Fished our cam chain into the jug. She's good now. As we continue to move the cylinder into, look at that, would you just look at it. Look at the excessive lube coming out right now. You guys appreciate just how much, come here, how much lube is dripping out right now? We have a well lubricated cylinder, piston, married together. They're now one. So our dowel pin kind of worked its way out. We're just gonna put this guy back in there. That goes right there. And then we have one up here that also worked its way out. We're gonna get that guy back in there. That's for the head. So we'll get to that next, but right now we have a piston and a jug reassembled. Now we can go ahead and put the head back on. So all this excessive lube that's just spewing out, we're just gonna clean that up. But first, what I wanna do is get this guy back in its hole. This is just a cam chain guide. I'm gonna take a couple of brand new Scott's paper towels, not sponsored. We're gonna make sure that this is completely free of excessive lube. Now we can have lube on the piston head itself, but as far as the walls here, we definitely want a nice dry surface for our head gasket. When you have a dry cylinder and dry head gasket, then and only then, people, you can marry the two up. Now we're reusing the head gasket. It is recommended that you replace it, but this little girl right here, she looks okay, so we're gonna reuse her. Tab up, slide this guy in, make sure my cam chain makes its way all the way through. A couple dowel pins, get them over that, married up, solid. And we're gonna go ahead and slide our head onto the jug. Bringing my cam chain through the slot here. Dowel pins already in the jug. Make sure those guys slide in there good. And we're in business here. Take these two little bolts, slide them into the side of my jug to head. So just tightening up my bolts over here. So these are just the two bolts that hold the head to the cylinder. That way this guy doesn't back out, move. We got her nice and tight. Then we got 4 bolts here, or 4 nuts rather, here that we're gonna be putting on in a second. But we're gonna transfer the stuff from the other jug onto this guy. So we're just gonna take this guy off, take that guy off, and put it on the new one. So this just protects, this is just a little bracket that protects the little sensor here. There we go. When in doubt, DeWalt. It's a 17, FYI. 17 on that guy. See that? Yeah. Okay. Tighten this guy down. Not ham. Torque to 1. And she's good. And I'll put my guard on there.
Fat56 Pat donate $1 through Super Chat. You got my support. Watch So Def Flims on YouTube.
Oh, $2 and you're spamming my stream, Pat?
Make sure you watch Photogromer every week.
Why you gotta commit me to every week though? I was going to like every 2 weeks. It's holiday season. So now we put the nuts back on. We just have to tighten this guy down and the head will be secured. 18 foot-pounds on the cylinder head cap bolts. Torque to spec. That's what we do here on Stock to Knot Season 3. We torque to spec. We're gonna take our intake gasket, put that guy back in his hole. Get the throttle body back on here. Tighten these guys up. All right, that's good. Let's put our cam sprocket back on. All right, still at top dead center here. If you guys are just watching this right now and you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to episode 1, rewatch how we got there. We're now gonna be taking our cam chain sprocket or cam sprocket, put it on there. So we're gonna match the O up with this little notch right here. There's a little notch on the side of your head. That O will be positioned just like that. So we gotta get our chain around that, make sure that links up properly. Yeah, we're a little off there. So the groove for this little tab right here is up there, so I gotta rotate this. So it just takes a little finesse, a little tedious, so I went ahead and did it off camera, but all you have to pay attention to is your O matches up with the ticker, and your T is still at top dead center, and then you just gotta wiggle it on, and then get your bolts on there. We still gotta torque this down, but besides that, everything's good. One way to check that you're at top dead center, you'll have a little bit of play in your valves. So I took my valve covers off, and went ahead and adjusted those off camera, but I'm gonna show you how to adjust those as well. But that was a tool that I was waiting to get in, was my valve adjustment tool. So we're at top dead center, sprockets on. down. We're gonna go ahead and torque this guy down 20 foot-pounds. When we torque this, we gotta hold this guy because this is gonna wanna spin. This is a 17. All right, now that that guy's torqued, the only thing I'm gonna do is just spin this guy around a few times, make sure we're still top dead center. So there's no spark plug in there right now, so we're not hearing any combustion, but there we are. We're on the O, we're on the T, top dead center again. Now we're gonna go ahead and show you how to adjust the valves. To adjust the valves, first thing you need to do is be at top dead center. So remove your 2 caps if you haven't done so already. Spin this guy counterclockwise until your O matches up with that little ticker right there, and your T matches up with that little line on your inspection glass. And then we're gonna move into the feeler gauge. So obviously you're gonna have to remove your intake and your exhaust valve covers. They're just little 8mm bolts on there, so let's remove those and then get yourself your feeler gauges and your 9mm valve adjustment tool or some open end wrenches that you can squeeze in there. 0.10, and then for the exhaust, 0.17. I'm gonna explain it while holding the camera, and then we're just gonna adjust. So in here is your valve. This is your intake valve up top. So we have where this rocker arm connects to the valve or hits against the valve. So what we're trying to do is get our feeler gauge in between the two where there's just a little drag. So I already adjust this like I said, but I'm gonna go ahead and take it apart and do it again. But when I first went to go do this, it was too tight. So I had to loosen this nut, back this nub out, and then slide it in there, tighten it back up, and then crank it shut, just so this drags a little bit. So I put this on there to break the nut, then I make sure this guy, my little nub, so this guy is gonna go on this hoodookie thing. This is what I'm actually using to adjust. This just locks it to the rocker arm, that way it doesn't move. So we'll get this guy on here to break it, make sure we're on with that one. Okay, it's broken. Now I can adjust, as you guys can see, take my feeler gauge, just putting it between the rocker arm and valve. A lot of play there. I can slide it easily in and out. If I tighten this guy all the way, you can see it doesn't move. So what you want is to get it tight there, then back it out a little bit. I'm just feeling for a little bit of drag. So now I'm holding my thumb screw and tightening this nut. Taking that guy off, just gonna double check. Okay, so there's a little bit of a drag, so I can feel it rubbing against it, but slides in and out. So that's good, so that one's good. Then we're gonna repeat the process on the bottom. In fact, I'm gonna skip that. I know I already got that adjusted. Since we put the oil mod in there, the oil pickup mod, I have this, which I've been running on my stunt Grom. This little guy here, it's a clear tappet cover. That way we can inspect that the oil pump is working. Once we get this all bolted back up and fired up, I'm just gonna, add a little ultra slick goodness on here. And we'll crank this guy around while we do it. So I did mention I have a new spark plug. So we'll go ahead and slide her in. Torque down our spark plug. 12 foot-pounds for the spark plug. That's it. Head back in. Solid airbox going back on. There's a little bushing mount right there that goes in, and then 2 bolts up here. Then we just connect the snorkel and the throttle body, and we're good. We're good there. Let me get some sensors back in. All right, now that we got the air box back on, throttle body's hooked up, spark plug in, sensors back connected, we are now going to reassemble our side cover. So we're just gonna make sure our plunger is good in the notch, apply pressure, and rotate the release arm. Make sure it's going in and out it is. Still got our bearing there, still got our bearing here. Add a little bit of oil on the bearing. Gasket is looking good, we're gonna keep the same gasket. We got our dowel pins here, and well, here on this, but it goes right there. So we're gonna leave that, that's fine. Lube up my bearing here, lube up my plunger. Now I'm just gonna reassemble my side case. Okay, she's in there. I'm just gonna work my bolts around, get them hand tight. A couple of these bolts have connectors. Some of these sensors over here also have them, so just pay attention to that. All right, I got all these case bolts hand tight. The only one I haven't put in yet is the clutch cable retainer. Goes through the side case as well, but I like to marry these guys back up, put the clutch cable back in its release arm, and then get it in place on this little pin and put the engine case bolt back in. This makes it a lot easier so you don't have to adjust the nuts. And hopefully you don't have to adjust your clutch at all. But we're gonna see here in a second, once we get everything back together. Pulling that clutch, we do have those stiffer springs, so that'll be the defining moment to make sure that we put everything back together correctly and it engages and disengages as it should. I'm just gonna go hand tight on these. These are 9 or 7 foot-pounds torque, but again, engine case bolts are not the ones you want to snap from over torquing, so hand tight for these are 100% acceptable. Where it's gonna leak is in the back during wheelies and underneath, so if you want to give a little extra, do the ones on the bottom, but don't go ham. 7 or 9 foot-pounds is not a lot. What do we got here? Super chat, $10, Tommy Rides. Thank you, buddy. Let there be life. Yeah, 1 quart. I'm just gonna double check since I did use it for some lubrication. Make sure it's pretty accurate. A little bit down. All right, I'm gonna give it a little bit extra because I stole some of it for the clutch plates. So just using the GN4 Honda oil, highly recommended, and so does your manual. All right, last step we need to do is add the exhaust. And I know you guys are sitting on the end of your seat wondering, what is Photogromer gonna do this season? Is he gonna do a competition works? Yoshimura, what is he gonna do? Well, good news, guys. You thought I was gonna do a stock exhaust, right? Surprise, surprise. We are not doing a stock exhaust. We are doing a Hindle, spare no expense for my patrons. Whoever wins this bike is getting a premium performance exhaust. Hindle, carbon fiber, 100% flea market Hindle exhaust. We're gonna slap the exhaust back on, then we are gonna fire this bad boy back up.
The San Fran Show donated $1 through Super Chat. Man spared no expense.
Thomas became a member. Thank you, Thomas. Check out that community tab. See some behind the scenes content specific to members. Now we're gonna go ahead and reset the ECU. So you just remove the cap. It's a little bit of a tricky thing, but some pliers and little swear words you'll get in there. All right, now that we got that removed, we're gonna take a paper clip, bend the paper clip to look similar to this. Pull back your sleeving on here. You're gonna find the blue and the green wires and which slots they go in. For me, the way I'm holding it, it's gonna be the 2 back ones. We're just gonna bridge the blue and green by sticking the paper clip inside. Okay, blue and green in. And to reset the ECU, once we have that in there, let's get up here. So to reset the ECU, we're gonna go full throttle, wide open throttle, turn the key on. We're gonna see some flashiness over here, flashing fast. Then we remove it within 5 seconds and release the throttle. And then we should have a slow blinky thing, and that is it. So remove your paper clip within 5 seconds of the flashiness. Then you'll have a slow flashiness up here, and that's it. Turn it off, you're done. It's reset. Okay, let's start this guy. Prime it. Kill switch done. Am I neutral? In neutral. I want to feel this clutch real quick. Oh, she needs to be adjusted. All right, here we go. First start. Let's go. We got oil shooting, I can see it. All right, you can see the tappet cover there. I'm just gonna give it some gas. Shooting oil. So the straight up pump is working. All right, so we have a running Grom behind us, so it's a go. The giveaway's a go. So if you guys want to join, be entered, automatically entered in the giveaway, click the link down below, join up. We'll be giving this guy away pretty soon. We have a brand new top end in it, brand new performance Hindle exhaust on it as well. And we're gonna be adding some more parts, which we'll pick up in a future episode. Look at the pinned comment down below. That'll be the next live stream. So hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below. Consider subscribing, becoming a member or a patron to be automatically entered. And I will see you guys in the next one. All right, Fumes, get out of here.